late. Kaspedi bare matsogo metsi. My name is Tshimologho Mathabata and I am the program director for the day. Without wasting any further time, I would like to welcome on stage my principal, Unisa Law Clinic Senior Attorney, Ms. Zintle Ketani, to render the first item on the program, opening and welcome. A good morning to our panelists. You guys are welcome. Our panelists being Councillor Ngabayetu Chabalala, Ms. Kyauleboga Molefe, and Mr. Katlego Mashego. Thank you guys for honoring the invite and gracing us with your presence. We look forward to hearing your presentations and the panel discussions that will emanate from today's insight. A great morning to our keynote speaker, the speaker of EKURHULENI, Councillor Cllr Tshivhenga. And I'm sure I speak for the whole room when I say that we are waiting on bated breath to hear your keynote address. Thank you for honoring the invite and taking time to share your knowledge with us. A good morning to all the formations in attendance today. You're all welcome. A warm greeting to the ladies and gentlemen in the audience. We thank you guys for coming and taking the time out of your schedules to be with us at our event. We also appreciate you coming out in such weather conditions. And last but definitely not least, a good morning to our audience streaming the event live on our Unisa Law Clinic YouTube page. And this is the part where I'm a social influencer. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and click on the notification bell for you guys to see our content as we upload it. Thank you guys for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, as seen on the program, my name is Zintle Ketani, and as introduced, I'm a senior attorney at the Law Clinic, and it is my pleasant duty on behalf of the College of Law through the Law Clinic to bid you all a genial welcome to today's program. The Law Clinic is a center of excellence where we pride ourselves in assisting the indigent and marginalized community members. We advocate for access to justice by providing essential free legal services to our clients. We request that you please do go on our social media pages to check out some of the impact cases that we have worked on and were successful on. A case that stands out and we hold dear to our success is the Stellenbosch urine case. This case was handled by our Cape Town branch. In this case, our client was a victim of a racially driven attack wherein a white student urinated on his belongings in his res unprovoked. And despite the mass support that our client received on social media, it was only Unisa Law Clinic that took actual action by going and offering to represent him and subsequently ensuring a victory. The racist perpetrator was expelled from the university, and as a result of our intervention, many other students have spoken out, and it's because they realized that their cries would not go unheard. I think this deserves a hand of applause. Another impact case that is being handled by the Law Clinic is the racist swimming pool case that happened in the Free State around Christmas last year, wherein at a holiday resort, 2 black teenage cousins were violently prevented from swimming in the resort's pool by old white men who stated that the pool was reserved for whites only. The matter is currently in court, and we are confident that the Nakedi cousins who suffered this grotesque atrocity will receive the justice that they deserve. And we urge you guys to please stay on this, to keep glued to our social media pages for updates. Additionally, the law clinics are centers wherein we ensure that our graduates get quality legal training for the pursuance of their legal professions. Principal attorneys, such as myself, supervise and train candidate legal practitioners as they serve their articles, and once the period has been successfully served, in compliance, of course, with the requirements of the Legal Practice Act, we then have the applications moved for admission and enrollment in the High Court of South Africa. Can we please clap for that? Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride to announce that additional to the law clinic that's situated here in Sunnyside campus, we were able to launch 3 more law clinics. We launched at the Middleburg campus, Paro campus, and Polokwane campus. And all these law clinics are fully accredited by the Legal Practice Council. We look forward to a further expansion and a longer reach for access to justice. May we please give it a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on about the commendable work that has been done and continues to be done at the law clinics, but that is not why we're here today. We appreciate you being here in attendance, and today we are convened to listen, critically analyze, and engage on a plethora of current affairs, ranging from matters touching on the coalition governance, cybercrime, the enforcement of socio-economic rights in South Africa, to matters relating to the 4th Industrial Revolution. Our program today promises to be a very interesting and mentally stimulating affair, and I hope that today inspires ideas and robust discussions on the topics that have been prepared. Once again, you are all welcome, and please do enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ketani. On our program, the next item, we have a message of support from College of Law Deanery, but unfortunately they are engaged in a college meeting and they are sending their blessings for this event to be a success. So I am gonna move swiftly to the 3rd item on our program, that is panel discussions. Can I just make corrections on the program? Mr. Jongi Zizwe Tlabati sent an apology, but there is someone who's standing for them. So I will start my item on the next page. We're gonna start with the first speaker, Ms. Cllr Tshivhenga. I'm just gonna read out her profile before she comes. Her topic for the day is on the exposition on the rise of cybercrime, an expert analysis on the breach management regulatory requirements as envisaged in the HOPI Act and cyber indemnity. Ms. Cllr Tshivhenga is an associate at Norton Rose Fulbright in the insurance litigation team based in Johannesburg. Cllr is a dispute resolution and insurance litigation lawyer. She is also focused on the areas in the insurance space, which include cyber liability, which focuses on advising insurers and brokers on cyber claims. She assists organizations with practical and effective compliance with data privacy and laws, and has experience in managing cyber breaches to mitigate risk arising from data breaches. She litigates cyber liability claims that arise from breaches and drafts opinions regarding policy responses. She also advises on the Cyber Crimes Act 19 of 2022 and the Protection of Personal Information Act 4 of 2013. She has experience in InsurTech, which focuses on policy review and advising clients on reducing risks associated with the technological innovations that are created in the new world of tech. Her other areas of focus are in the litigation work in insurance, reinsurance, medical malpractice, and healthcare disputes. She litigates subrogated defenses and recoveries and defense work for insurers and insurers regarding policy response, interpretation, and wording. She drafts opinions on general liability, indemnification and reinstatement value conditions, material damage, and business interruption. She also has experience in aviation insurance with a focus of Southern African and international aviation insurance markets, litigating for both local and foreign aviation insurers and other insureds. She further focuses on reviewing aviation insurance policies and provided legal opinions on the aviation regulations to both local and international entities. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome on stage Ms. Keaoleboga Molefe to render her presentation for the day.
Good morning, everyone.
Do you want to continue with yours already?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, take off.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. It is my greatest pleasure to be here, and especially because I am an alumni of the university and also a current student. So I'm here and I've made it. When Timologa invited me, you're the success story, you know, and it's so easy to have that imposter syndrome that, what do you mean I'm the success story? But I'm honored that I was part of this breeding ground that assisted me to become where I am and also influence the generation that is coming behind me to say that you will also be successful in the University of the Land, you know, and while that is not my focus for the day, my topic is around cyber liability and the presentation. I don't know, can I be assisted with a presentation? But my topic is around cyber attacks. Cyber attacks are one of the most cyber attacks have become very prominent in South Africa and across the world, where you get examples where the Justice Department was hacked by cyber criminals, and it was not possible for transcripts and the recordings of court proceedings to be retrieved. So you can imagine that a whole justice system was put on stand because of where I am right now. And part of what I and the team at my firm do is deal with these breaches and also advise clients on how to manage the cyber attacks. So South Africa specifically is the third largest targeted country in the world for cyber attacks. This may be because of our vulnerability. This tried to be fancy and have a presentation. Now it's not working in my favor, but yeah, it's a cyber attack. But you get different kinds of cyber attacks. So you get malwares, which are the most famous ones. In malwares, there's Trojan horses, there's ransomwares, there's spywares, there's adwares. Trojan horse, there's an interesting history behind it. Whether it's true or a myth, I'm not sure. But during ancient times, there was the Trojan War. and there was a city called Troy. If you've watched the movie, then you'll understand where I'm coming from. And so the Greeks wanted to infiltrate the city Troy, and it had a fortress. It was impenetrable, and the wall was a stronghold. So they created a device and said, let's come up with a strategy to go inside. They then built this massive structure, a horse wooden structure, and placed themselves neatly inside, and, you know, gave this as an offering to the Troy city as a gift. And as soon as they went inside, the spies came out and destroyed the city, and it was dead. So that's how a Trojan horse works. It's software that pretends to be a legitimate software, but it's not. As soon as it enters your computer devices, your laptops, your cell phones, you know, your systems, your computer systems, it comes in to destroy or spy on you. And then we have the ransomware. The ransomware we see where our clients' systems are hacked and they are unable to function or use it or conduct the business of the day. So in this particular client, their information was, well, their systems were breached and hacked and infiltrated. The hackers demanded a ransom, and usually they ask for bitcoins. You know, it's in the high threshold. So in the insurance space, they offer what is called a cyber liability policy. With your cyber liability policy, you pay premiums for your insurer to then indemnify you should you face a risk of a breach. The client obviously called the insurer to assist them with this cyber hack, and it depends. Some clients pay the ransom, and then the hacker, you know, go back and they don't need it. And some clients don't have to pay the ransom because their information can just be retrieved by a third party who has more advanced technological experience and can infiltrate the system that was breached. Then you also get a phishing. Phishing is when an imposer or an imposter poses as a legitimate entity. So an example is where your bank, what appears to be a bank, sends you an SMS and says, there's been an upgrade to the system. Can you please click on this link so that you can go into your app and make sure that you get these upgrades? Or, you know, it's usually a threat where your account is going to be blocked if you don't upgrade. Please click on this link. Once you click on the link, you're asked to furnish your passwords, your PIN codes, and all these information that could get the attacker or the hacker to access your information and steal the money out of your account. So it's very important to think before you click. And these malwares obviously come in through the sites that we watch, where we think we're watching free movies or free series. Kanti, the hackers are coming in through the back walls and they are spying on you, what you do, the activities that you like, your PIN codes, your passwords, and then they are then able to, you know, use this information either to crash your cell phone or electronic device or ask for a ransom. So it's important to ensure that you don't just click on everything. Then what are hackers looking for? You know, the biggest commodity of late is not hacking into banks, even though it would be great because there's money there. But hackers are now looking for information. They're looking for data. They're targeting entities that have data. A typical example being a university. They have your student numbers, they have your contact details, they have your, you know, the modules that you're studying. And you'll see, as soon as you register, there's a third-party school that is offering you tuition, that is offering you all these things. So just to show how data is so rich and it's so important to the hackers or third parties who have an interest. So institutions can also actually sell this data, you know, to third parties. And that's when the government saw that there's a need to actually protect certain data. And through its protection, it enacted the Protection of Personal Information Act, which is famously known as the POPI Act. So the POPI Act regulates the processing of personal data. It has 4 role players. It has the data subject. The data subject is the person whose information is being processed. And then we have the responsible party, who is now the institution, the UNISA, who has our personal contacts, our details, our modules that we've studied for. And then there's a regulator. The regulator is the person who enforces all the regulations that are put in the Act. So what does the Act say? The Act says that an entity who is responsible with information must ensure that it uses such information for the specific purpose that it took it. So if you give your information to UNISA, the only purpose it can use it for is for you and UNISA. It cannot give it to third parties. You'll also see that some data, as soon as you buy a car, you'll hear from all these insurance companies, you'll hear from all these traces, there's all this information that is being sold in and out. So the Act itself criminalizes unlawful distribution, unlawful access, unlawful infiltrations, and unlawful interference with data. You can either be fined or sent to prison for breaching the Act. And then we also have the regulator who can institute legal proceedings against somebody or an entity that is entrusted with this data and yet distributes it, or there's a breach from a third party of this data. So it's very important that such data is kept with the utmost integrity. There must be security measures, you must have firewalls, and you must have a third party entity that actually protects this private data. There's also, because of the cyber phenomenon and the cyber hacking that has developed over the years and is getting quite big. I mean, small entities to government entities, the justice system, as I've said, was infiltrated, I think, last year. So the legislature then enacted the Cyber Criminal Act in 2020, which then criminalizes any activity that is unlawful in the cyberspace. So unlawful access, interference, interception, and also acquisition of data through computer devices. An example is the case that happened at ENS. ENS is one of the biggest firms in South Africa. Its client was buying property and it stood as the conveyancer, exchanging, transaction or assisting them with that process. Its client then paid the purchaser of the property, paid 5 million into their account. But however, the hackers, because they're so sophisticated, I mean, you've seen it in the movies, these spying and espionage movies, they'll intercept, an email account. And they were able to intercept the email account because the purchaser had a malware in their device. So the hacker was spying on the emails, the passwords, and everything. So when ENS sent their bank accounts, the hacker intercepted that email, put in their details and their bank accounts, and that got to the purchaser. The purchaser paid into the hacker's account unbeknown to them, and obviously now was disgruntled because it's 5 million rand. The ENS denied any liability and it went to court. So the court had to prove, the purchaser was claiming for purely pecuniary loss, meaning purely financial loss in terms of delict. And in terms of delict, what you must prove is that there was an act, and that act caused you a loss or a harm, and there was causation between the act of the other party and your loss, and that there was fault. The court established that the ENS knew of the risks behind transacting with, behind transactions, and knew of the risk that phishers or phishing is a possibility when you exchange email addresses, especially sensitive information like bank accounts. And it's their duty to take care when they do have that information and ensure that steps are taken to prevent any phishing or hacking. So it's not new in the, especially in the conveyancing industry, that somebody will intercept information and give false information to the third parties. So what the court held, that it had a responsibility to either phone the third party or put in an encryption in their PDF form, in their PDF, a banking account that needed a password or any other intervening measures that would have not allowed these hackers to infiltrate. And the court found in favor of the purchaser and awarded them 5 million rand of the purchaser. And these are just simple examples of how important it is to protect data. In my firm, what we do is, obviously we represent insurers who then step in when there is a cyber breach. Once there's a cyber breach, the insured will usually reach out to their insurer and say, I've been encrypted, my data is compromised, or I can't access, or the hackers want a ransomware. The policy then responds by managing the negotiations with the hacker. We have also negotiated the amount for this ransomware, because sometimes you need to pay this ransomware. So the insurance policy gives you that allowance, and sometimes we've appointed third party to assist us with de-encrypting that information. Then there's also the Films and Publication Act, which also regulates the cyber aspect or transmission of private and compromising pictures. So it's usually called the Revenge Porn Act, where your ex or disgruntled person distributes your naked pictures. This act, as well as the Cyber Crimes Act, criminalizes the unlawful distribution of pornographic images of another person. So if your ex is bitter, he will be charged if he distributes your naked pictures. And just in closing, it's important that every institution, when dealing with your data and when you are dealing with your own data, make sure that you know the email address that you are looking at. Make sure that when you do click on an attachment, you are expecting such an attachment. Make sure that when somebody says you've inherited 10 million rand from a dead person in your family, you know of that dead person in your family. And make sure that when you do have custodian of personal and private information, you keep it in a safe place where there's no infiltration, and you get third parties to actually intervene in how your IT system works. So that's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Leboga. Another round of applause, please. And thank you also for reminding me I was chatting campuses with her, Gojobek. Thank you so much for your brilliant presentation, Ms. Gea. I really learned a lot about cyber crimes and all those acts. And I hope to the audience or attendees, you are noting down your questions for the question and answer session. Without any further waste of time, I would like to welcome on stage Mr. Cllr. Before you stand, sir, let me just read his profile. Mr. Cllr will be speaking on the topic, the enforcement of socio-economic rights in South Africa. Cllr Arnold Mashego is currently a Doctor of Laws, a candidate with the University of the Western Cape. Other qualifications include National Diploma, Legal Assistance, Tshwane University of Technology, Certificate, International Management, Osnabrück University of Applied Sciences in Germany, Baccalaureus Technologie Business Administrations at Tshwane University of Technology, Bachelor of Laws with the University of South Africa, Master of Laws with the University of the Western Cape. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Katlego Mashego.
Thank you very much, Program Director. It's still morning, eh? Oh, it's afternoon. Good afternoon, guys. How are you? Fine. I'll be speaking on socio-economic rise today. Presentations, this topic is one of the important topics that I think a majority of us must have information on. And I've prepared actually a 2-hour presentation, and I just hope that you will, I'm joking, it's just 10 minutes. Okay, so when we speak on socio-economic rise, we speak of the rise that we have as the people, which necessarily are there to deal with the eradication of poverty. We know that the continent that we are in, Africa, together with South Africa as the country, many people face or are facing socio-economic challenges. So as such, hence the topic for today. So my topic is just divided into, or my presentation is just divided into several aspects, which will be the introduction, which I'm doing now, then the international perspective. And then I'll also speak briefly on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Then I'll speak on factors affecting the enforcement of socio-economic rise. And I will conclude after that. So as part of the introduction, I've indicated that when we speak on socio-economic rise, we speak of the rise that relate to eradication of poverty. And in South Africa, if you'll check your constitution in terms of section 26, 27, and 29, you will see that we have got those rights protected under the Bill of Rights. So in South Africa, the constitution is the supreme law of the land, meaning each and every law that is done must advance and not contradict the constitution. So, and also our constitution is all about the improvement of quality of life of all citizens and freeing them from the potential of each other, like to allow people to have their potential be reached. So the rights that are protected in terms of the constitution, we have socio-economic rights in particular. We have got the rights to housing, right to healthcare, food, water, social security, and education, which we are now here. So these are rights that form part of the socio-economic rights. And you will note that, looking at the international perspective, that also the African Charter, which can be seen as the Constitution of Africa, also protects these rights. And South Africa is part of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It also outlined the different rights that I just mentioned, not literally, but one way or the other similar to what is in the Constitution. So as the South African citizens, we have right to the enforcement of those rights. When we speak of enforcement, we speak of the fact that those rights, they must be protected. Each and every person must enjoy. And I need to enjoy those rights. I need to emphasize that in certain countries, they do not enjoy these rights. Like for instance, we have these rights in the Bill of Rights. Other countries, for instance, if we look at Nigeria, they only have these rights as part of what the government promises to do, but it's not necessarily part of the rights which you can go to court and actually claim. For example, You will note, some of you might have already read the judgments on Grootboom case and Subramani case. If you haven't, I think you will still have to read on that, which is around socio-economic rights. So many countries of Africa argue that they fail to enforce socio-economic rights because of lack of resources. For example, if we must advance, or if healthcare, people are given right to healthcare, free medical assistance, free education, and the likes, obviously money must be there. So the countries are arguing that they do not have funds in order to enforce or protect those rights. But at the moment, we have got the so-called African Continental Free Trade Area Agreements, whereby African countries are agreeing that they are going to trade more with one another. It is the argument that in order for countries' economies to develop, African countries must trade more with one another. You'll notice that Africa have been part of other international trade organizations, such as the World Trade Organization, which obviously we can see that it has not yielded a lot of good results for Africa, because Africans still continue to suffer and people still live under circumstances that are not good. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is all about having African countries trading more with one another. We are Africans, and we are able to, we know each other, and we're able to trade more with one another in a way that will advance the African people. I know African Continental Free Trade Area has got also some provisions which allows people to freely move across the borders, which is one of the concerns that were raised, that people might flee to certain countries, and those countries end up being congested with people. For example, countries such as South Africa, Botswana, Egypt were one of those countries that were identified that many will flee there, and it will cause more damage than solution, because then it will mean that if many people move to these specific countries, then it will mean that that specific country will fail to look after their citizens. But it is argued that still the countries, they can reserve on the free movement of people, but free movement of goods is important. Remember, as I said, the more we have got trade, the more people tend, or the economy tend to grow. So if African Continental Free Trade Area is a hope for Africa, those of you who have done history, you'll remember in 1963 that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was advocating for the integration of Africa. He also wanted the political integration, like to have the so-called United States of Africa, which leaders at that time did not approve for whatever reasons. But this African Continental Free Trade Area also addresses some of his concerns, which he was indicating that we must trade more with one another. For instance, I'm going to give you a typical example whereby we have got farmers in the United States which are getting immense support, immense funding from their government, whereas we've got farmers in Africa who do not have funding at all. And these people are now supposed to compete on an international level under the World Trade Organization. You will see that it is an unfair fight. Hence, it is my argument that Africa still remain in this kind of situation that we are in. So the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is estimated that it will bring about 30 million people out of extreme poverty, and it will generate 450 billion income boost by 2023. So that is what the African Continental Free Trade Area is bringing about. It's just started now, actually, so it's something that we cannot criticize at the moment because it is an agreement which was just signed. And fortunately enough, 54 countries out of the 55 that we have is only one that did not sign it, are part of that. And we remain hopeful that the African Continental Free Trade Area will change the situations that we are in, particularly the socio-economic challenges. But we cannot neglect the fact that there are other factors that are preventing the enforcement of socio-economic rights. There are many, but the most, or the one that I can discuss with you, is corruption, which I believe it must be addressed, because if we have got maybe, for instance, a politician that takes for himself maybe 10 million out of certain department, let's say maybe, for example, is a Department of Health, that 10 million was gonna do something better as opposed to benefiting that one person or with his group of individuals, friends and family. That 10 million could assist rural areas whereby people are failing to access basic health care. For instance, people will be sick and go to clinic. The clinic will give them Panado. You are sick, you have got probably stomach issues, but you are given Panado because the clinic does not have enough medicine. So those are the factors that affect socioeconomic rights, and we believe that the African Continental Free Trade Area will also address the 32.7% unemployment rate that we have, and also other issues that we have. So technically, that's socioeconomic rights presentation, and I thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cllr, for the very informative presentation. Another round of applause, please. Thank you. I'm going to ask everyone to turn back to the first page of the program. Our next guest speaker is Councillor Ngabayetu Chabalala. Councillor Ngabayetu Chabalala completed his Bachelor of Arts degree with a triple major in political studies, international relations and law from Wits University in 2016. He is currently enrolled with the Corporate Governance Institute South Africa for the Chartered Governance Professional Pathway. Before becoming a public representative councillor, Councillor Chabalala ran a business development and governance consultancy agency with a particular focus on building SMME development and socio-economic development policies for local government and organs of state. Please put your hands together for Councillor Ngabayetu Chabalala.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. Okay. It's a challenge to stand here in front. We don't have a presentation, but we just have a brief reflection. Am I audible? It's intimidating to stand up after lawyers have taken the platform. But no, I'll try to be brief. Thank you very much, and greetings to all honorable guests in this opening of this critical facility, as well as the plan which we are here to launch. Good morning to everyone. I was asked to prepare a brief reflection on the topic, which is the instability of coalition governments and its impact on service delivery. But before we get into the crux of the subject, I want to take a moment to reflect on the notion of coalition governments in the South African context. There is a misnomer or misunderstanding of the reality of coalition governments. Many people don't understand or don't know that the first democratically elected government in South Africa in 1994, the Government of National Unity, was in fact a coalition government, as led by the ANC, in coalition with the IFP and the National Party. That was our first prefix, or so to speak, of a coalition government as early as 1994. But what is a coalition government? A coalition government is a government comprising of two or more political parties which have a formal power-sharing agreement between each other relating to executive rule of over any sphere of government, be it local, provincial, or national government. So it's a formal agreement. It's not a handshake. That is a coalition government. Now, with that basic understanding of what coalition government looks like, it's an agreement and a formal one between two or more political parties, executive rule over a sphere of government. Today, as we are in 2023, we found that coalition governments have become a prevailing reality in our body politic in South Africa. If we reflect far back to 2016 in the local government elections, we then saw a prevalence of coalition governments because of an inability of some of the major political parties to attain a 50% plus one majority. But if we reflect on the 1994 agreement, we see that coalition governments are not only formed because one party has failed to form or attain over 50% plus one. At times, a coalition government can be formed through a joint purpose, maybe a purpose of national unity, as we saw in the 1994 context. In other times, we may see that a coalition government can be formed in a post-war context, where we now have a vision, a common vision to build the country towards a national purpose, which requires us to bring all strands of politics together as one for a certain period of time. One of the major things we need to consider in that kind of format is the notion of nationhood. As South Africa, in our own context, can we really say we are a nation? We have the state, which has all of its organs aligned, but can we really say we are a nation? We've got 11 cultures, 11 languages, official languages. We've got these provinces which are dominated by certain cultures and languages in that space. We are not a nation. Thabo Mbeki, the chancellor of this institution, at some point during his presidency would have noted that South Africa is a country of two nations, one white and dominantly rich, and one is black and dominantly poor. But our circumstances have changed. We have different reflections of what nations in South Africa look like, because now we have a rise of the black bourgeoisie, for instance. You can no longer classify them as black and poor. Some of them are in the corporate space. Some of them are, in fact, in ownership of the means of production. It is a reality. And therefore, do we classify all of us as being black and predominantly poor, or do we take note of the changes that have come in our body politic and even in our socio-economic standing? It's another consideration for debate. Ne? But now I've given that context that there are there's a plethora of circumstances that result in the formation of coalition governments. And in terms of the topic that I've been given today in particular, we want to reflect on the instability of coalition governance and its impact on service delivery. This is now speaking at a more localized level in the form of local governments or municipalities. Recent events across some of the top municipalities in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal have demonstrated that not just South African municipalities, but the overall body politic in South Africa still has a long way to go when it comes to understanding and using governance in municipalities through the formation of coalitions. We're all aware that there's been countless motions of no confidence across various municipalities, especially in the Gauteng metros, city of EKURHULENI, city of Tshwane, city of Johannesburg. And this stems from different reasons, but I will try to summarize a few which I believe are pertinent. Number one, there is a lack of a legislative framework that governs coalition agreements. Because we claim that a coalition agreement is that if it has a formal arrangement, a formal agreement between those parties involved. Now, if we lack a legislative framework to govern those coalition agreements, we're already in a gradual crisis of governance. Because if we fail to have or prescribe a legislative framework of how these coalition agreements should look, we risk having political parties move into and out of coalition agreements as they like due to considerations of political expediency. We've seen it in the 3 metros in Gauteng, where certain political parties will form part of a coalition government. And when something that is not in favor of their political interest were to take place, it is easy for them to just dissolve themselves from that agreement because there's no legislative framework around that. Secondly, the legal nature of these agreements is also being put into question. Because if we're going to go into a coalition agreement with the exclusive understanding that, no, we're going to give you this position and that position, what about the substance of the governance procedures which must be followed by that government which is now in coalition? So the crux of it is that without a legislative framework, you risk having the kind of crisis that we are currently facing across municipalities that are currently governed through coalitions. And secondly, we have a challenge in our current coalition framework, which presents the party interest vis-a-vis the people's interests. So our coalition setup, because it's so immature, it is difficult for political parties when they engage at that level to prioritize people's interests over their political party interests. The reason for that is purely because none of them are dominant enough. None of them have reached the 50+1%. So if all of them have to compromise. But it is difficult to compromise your political position. It is easier for political parties, unfortunately, to compromise on the people's interests. Because we know if we go out and we campaign and we follow these manifestos and all of that, we champion to say we are there for the people's interests. Once people are elected into positions, the status now is on the political party interest, you know. And coalition agreements, unfortunately, in our own context in South Africa, are set up like that. And it's a compromise on the ability now of that coalition government to meet its service delivery imperatives in that particular municipality or that structure of local government. And thirdly, in line with that, the previous point, there is a power struggle between political parties. Once we have compromised on the people's interest and we prioritize political party interests, when we form these coalition governments, and when I say we, I'm not including myself, when we form these coalition setups, there is a power struggle because now, coming from a certain political party, we want to ensure that we remain dominant in this coalition arrangement. So we want the key positions that give us access to the political and governance resources. And that, again, furthermore, becomes a compromise on the ability of that coalition setup to ensure its service delivery directives. So where do we get, at the local government level, where do we get the legislative prescript? We get it from Section 153 of the Constitution, which gives local authorities or local governments the obligation to provide basic services to the people water reticulation, electricity reticulation, the basics of socio-economic development. And in light of the power struggle, in light of the political interest, in light of the lack of the legislative framework, the biggest compromise when coalition governments or coalition agreements are formed is on that section 153, because we all have different interpretations of how it should be done. Some political parties don't believe in the provision of free basic services. Some political parties believe that all basic services must be free. And some political parties understand that if 70% of a municipality's revenue must come from the residents itself, there must be a balance in terms of how you provide certain services for free and some would be paid for, and how much do we pay, the threshold and so forth. So those different interpretations of Section 153 are also a big consideration when you look at the coalition setup, because we all have different views of how Section 153 must be pursued. So, without wasting too much time, I just wanted to give that brief summary in the reflections of some of the causes of the instability that we see in terms of the provision of service delivery within our communities through coalition governance. Just a reflection before we part ways. The South African democratic body politic is very immature. It's approaching 30 years. And like we said, the South African democracy is actually born out of a coalition arrangement. But in terms of local government, where basic services are delivered to our people, which also has as a primary mandate, not just service delivery, but socio-economic development at a grassroots level, it's a new phenomenon. And with it being new, when you look at the trajectory, especially in our metros, in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, you can see that it's becoming a prevailing reality. You can see that the majority party is losing its dominance over the political landscape, and there's a rise of the kingmakers and other considerations. So it is important for us to have foresight into the political trajectory of this country. Given the experiences that we're seeing now, in the city of Tshwane, we know that basic service delivery is a challenge. We know that there's a water crisis in the city of Tshwane. Hammanskraal community has had no water for the past about 4 or 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. In the city of EKURHULENI, where we are from, we've had a big crisis of waste removal. We have a big energy crisis. Basic services are not being delivered, and even interpretations of what is a basic service is different from government to government. City of Johannesburg follows the same path. What we need, and this is a reflection because we're speaking to students and young people. I'm also a young person myself. In fact, I believe I'm the youngest ward councillor in EKURHULENI. I think so. What we then need to look at is the formation of government as a whole. Is it sufficient to have governments being formed out of elections and elections only? Elections don't look at do I have a PhD or do I have grade 10. Elections look at how many votes I got on the ballot paper. Now, when you are eventually in government, we need to develop a new perspective of how governance should look like. Government must form partnerships with other strands of society. Government must engage with academics in the formulation of its policies and in the influence of the legislation that public representatives make when they're in parliament, when they're in provincial legislatures, when they are in councils, municipal councils. We need to look at how we build on integrating academics into the space. We need to look at how we build on integrating interest groups. We need to look at building, formulating partnerships with professionals who are grounded not only in their form or field of expertise, but who have a sense of political and social consciousness in understanding that South Africa, using measures of the Gini coefficient is the most unequal society in the world. Now, if we are in that position, one thing that we cannot afford in the midst of all of the corruption, in the midst of all of the lack of resources, is a failure to provide that which is most basic to our people, which is service delivery at a grassroots level. How best we can do that is to involve more than just politicians who got there through the ballot paper, but people who are grounded in the political and social consciousness of the conditions of our people on the ground and in the condition of our continent as a whole, because South Africa does not operate as an island in Africa. So even when we say we want African solutions for African problems, we need to look at those whom we have groomed within that particular context in these institutions of higher learning to come forth and make a contribution into the governance of society, not leave it just in the hands of politicians. So that is my submission for today. I hope in our reflections as we go to the question and answer session, on top of the questions, maybe we may be able to formulate working solutions which we can take with us back to the city of EKURHULENI to work in the interest of young people and the South African society at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chabalala, for the great political education. We are enlightened. Ladies and gentlemen, can we turn to the next page? Without diluting the excellent presentations by our panel speakers, we will swiftly move to the item question and answer session. And this is how I am deciding to run it. May I have the first round? 5 hands for the first round. State your name and surname and who your question is directed to, and then the speakers will answer. I am noting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In that order. May I please be assisted with the microphones, please? Gentlemen standing there are seats this side. You may come this side, please.
Hey, good morning. Ngengama, my name is Mandla Mboto. I'm from the Northwest Province, Unisa Potchefstroom campus, which is in the Midlands region, the largest region in the Unisa University. Yes. Yes. So my question is actually directed to Mr. Katlego Mashego. Mr. Mashego, you touched based on the fact that Section 29 of the Constitution, which is education, it states that basic education is a right. And my question is access to further or higher education a right in the times that we're living in? Because if I can speak to you right now, Mr. Mashego, we're having students that are being excluded because of not having financial means to further their studies. So should the Constitution be amended where we state that higher education or access to higher education is a right now, Mr. Mashego? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Afternoon. My name is Seth Matlo and I'm a master's candidate. My question is a little bit long. I'll just have to read it. There is some provisions in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child that are relevant to and assessment of state parties' obligation regarding socio-economics. Article 24 states that parties shall take all effective and appropriate measures with a view to abolishing traditional practices prejudicial to the health of children. And in our country, we practice initiation school for males, female genital mutilation, and virginity testing. Do you think practicing foregoing are in contravention with Article 24 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Apologies. Gentlemen, your question is directed to who again?
I forgot. It's Mr. Mashiro.
Mr. Mashiro. Thank you. Yes, number 3 is that side. Sorry. You.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Mahlomola Mlefe. I'm from Ward 109 in Etwatwa, from the city of EKURHULENI. And my question is also directed to Mr. Cllr Tshivhenga. On the African continental free trade, you mentioned that of the 55 African states, 1 did not sign into the agreement. Can you please let us know which country is that and what's their reason or reasons for not signing? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nomalanga Sibanda from Unisa, Florida. The question is directed to our first speaker. For IR has unhashed in a new era of economic disruption with uncertain socio-economic consequences for Africa. However, Africa has been left behind during the past industrial revolutions. Will this time be different? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kopano Mzizi, and my questions, I have 2 questions actually to the first speaker, Miss Molefe. I wanted to ask, what can individuals and organizations do to balance the use of technology with the need for data privacy and security? And second question is, can you provide examples of companies that have successfully implemented cyber indemnity policies in compliance with the POPI Act? Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The first question was directed to Mr. Mashiro. Mr. Mashiro.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the questions. I see I've got 3 questions, then I was even now getting worried that maybe I choose the wrong topic today. Okay, I'll answer the first question, and I'll briefly answer the second and the third, and my colleague here, co-panelist, will also add on the second and the third question as she assists me towards answering them. Okay, so the first question was on basic education, or on education, primarily section 29. So section 29 indicates that South Africans, or in terms of the constitution, people in South Africa have got right to education, and but it speaks on basic education. But if we can check the subsection B, it indicates that the further education can be made free, in my interpretation, only due to available resources. And if you will have checked on my submissions, I've indicated that Africa, or South Africa in particular, must now focus on the African continental free trade area, which it is believed that it will generate income, a lot of income for African countries. So, and also issues such as corruptions and other issues are the factors that delays the realization of free education throughout. Because remember, for free education, or for all the socio-economic rights that I was speaking of, money must be there to realize them, as opposed to the rights, civil and political rights, for instance, right to life and all of that. There is no necessity for money in that regard. So I believe that I agree with you, my brother, that indeed the constitution must be revisited. Actually, it was the topic that we were, during while we were still waiting, we're discussing that the constitution of the country, even though it's notified that it is the best constitution in the world, it must be revisited because it does not address problems of South Africans. So that is my answer to that, because not only in the sense of the right, that is one of the issues, but we've got many other issues. We can't rely on the fact that we've got the best constitution in the world, whereas us and the people generally of South Africa are still suffering. So I agree with you, it must be revisited, it must be changed, and the government must do as much as they can to increase the economy of the country so that they can be able to enforce that socio-economic right to education, not only in primary schools and secondary schools, but also in varsity, because obviously when we look at the socio-economic background of many South Africans, we need free education in order to pursue varsity. But without that, obviously, it will be a challenge. I know there is NEFSAS, but we all know that it has got challenges of its own, and it cannot necessarily, in my view, be seen as free education. Thank you very much.
So much, Mr. Mashego. The gentleman who asked the second question, may you please repeat your question?
The question is Article 24(3) states that parties shall take all effective and appropriate measures with a view to abolishing traditional practices prejudicial to the health of children. And in our country, we practice initiation school for males, female genital mutilation and virginity testing. do you think these practices foregoing are in contravention with the Article 24 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child? That's a question.
Thank you very much. In answering that question, obviously, it takes us to indigenous laws and customary laws. As Africans, we have got the way that we live in. And also, I'll refer you also to the presentation in answering this question, that I did indicate that as South Africa and Africa, we are party to several international instruments, which includes the United Nations, which you have mentioned. And in my presentation, I also spoke of the World Trade Organization, and I indicated that it does not necessarily solve problems of Africa, because we have been part of that for a very long time, but our people are still continuing to suffer. People still sleep without food. We see many people on the roads asking for coins to buy food. Others even ask for bread. Whereas we are part of this renowned World Trade Organization, which does not necessarily solve our problem. Hence, we advocate for the trade agreement, which is on the African scale, which will be able to solve African problem. So in answering that, I feel like that specific article that you speak of is undermining ourselves as Africans and South Africans in terms of practicing our own way of life. So I understand that initiation school can be seen as going against that article, but I do not see a necessity for the practices, initiations and other practices to be abolished based on that, because that's our way of life as Africans and South Africans. Thank you. And as I said, my colleague will also add. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Question 3. Yeah. Then I will move to question 3, which came on the other side. And also my colleague also indicated that she will add on that. Out of the 55 countries that we have in Africa, 54, as we have indicated, have signed the, or as you have asked, have signed the African Continental Free Trade Area. The only country that did not sign is Eritrea, which has raised a number of reasons. Also in answering that, I'll just want to add that you will have noted on my presentation that I indicated that some countries were reluctant to actually be part of the African Continental Free Trade Area because of one of the clauses that has like free movement of people, because certain countries feel like they will be congested with many people, and as such, they will not be able to look after their people correctly. So I just want to indicate the reason that the Minister of Eritrea has indicated, which indicates that for the fact that they didn't want to be part of this at the moment, we do not know if in future they will change their stand. So they've indicated that in terms of the academic discourse on the African Continental Free Trade Area, Eritrea's long-held stance is crystal clear. First articulation of at the 1994 summit. So their position transcends platitudes to focus on incremental, achievable result, i.e., nurturing first the building blocks of the RECs. So their position is that since, I don't know if you are aware, but we have got building blocks which are also recognized in terms of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which are, for example, in our site, we fall under the Southern African Community. SADC. Yeah, thank you. So we form part of that, and RIA also forms part of another community. So the argument is that they are focusing on that specific trade agreement which they have with their neighboring country. We're not sure that that's the actual reason, because obviously we're speaking on politics, so we don't necessarily know, but that's their stance. But we will just remain hopeful that they will join, because obviously they have something that they can contribute towards making Africa better. Thank you very much.
Ms. Kiaoleboga.
Yeah. So I won't add on to his answers. I think ke tla be ke senya fela. But on the IR4 question, you know, I know the implications thereof. I know big corporates in South Africa have retrenched in their numbers because of automation technology, and the going into the machines must do the work. You go into McDonald's, you see that, you know, there are no tellers anymore at banks. You're using machines now to order or to place something, which has caused retrenchments. But my argument is that technology itself is not the problem. The means of production, our land, our economy, that's the problem. If it was in the hands of our people, we wouldn't have any problem with technology. Technology is where we're going. We should be encouraging technology. What we should then balance is redistribution and compensation for our people who are in the vast majority living in dire poverty. Africa is the richest continent in the world. We should, as its people, be benefiting from that and creating the necessary technologies to make all of these systems work. So while I do understand the current impact that it has, I think we should not discredit technology, but discredit our current systems in Africa. And then the second question was the balance use of technology. Okay, so the balance of use of technology. Okay, I've forgotten the first part of the question, but the second part was the entities that have successfully complied with the POPI Act. So what entities do is hire third-party IT technicians to then run their systems. You know, then they have passwords, they have double systems or two-part systems of how you can access information. What they'll do is that in your app, for instance, you'll log in first, or maybe in your UNISA apps. For instance, when you go on My UNISA, they will need your student number, it'll need your password. With your banking app, what it does is then when you do a transaction, it'll ask you for your password again, or for you to confirm this payment. So that's how you comply with the POPI Act, and various entities have. But because of the sophistication of these hackers, because they have sophisticated crime, it's very important to also note that infiltration are a matter of when they will happen, you know, and not that even if you comply with the POPI Act or the Cybercrimes Act, infiltration is still a possibility. What the POPI Act then requires you, if there is a compromise or a breach of data, is for you to inform the data, the person who is entitled to that data of the potential breach, and as well as do mitigating processes thereafter, meaning you have to immediately notify them, if it's possible, immediately delete such information or retrieve it, and the regulator prosecute the person who either unlawfully accessed that information or the entity who was negligent in that part. I hope I've understood and answered. Can you just repeat your first question, please?
The first question or the second one?
The first one.
Because the first I said, what can individuals and organizations do to balance the use of technology with the need for privacy and security? Yes.
Okay, and then for us as individuals, so it's the links. I know that it's fun to have these apps where you can listen to music for free, download movies for free, and all of these things. But what we don't understand is that they created for a reason. Hackers are looking for that opportunity because they can infiltrate all the movies, the latest movies. What they want is your personal information. They want your pins to your account. They want access to your bank, your schools, everything that is your email addresses so that they can infiltrate it. So be careful on these sites. Also, don't just click on any website or on an SMS. Go to the actual website. When you have a phone, make sure you have a password. My father doesn't have a password because he's old, but it also compromises the information on your phone because now they can de-encrypt. There are de-encrypting apps of passwords. So it's also essential that when you do have a password, have characters, have an exclamation mark or an @ sign or numbers inside of it. Don't make it your name, your daughter's name, your birth. Make it something that is rare and unique and have those numbers just to add and reinforce the security of your data. Thanks.
Thank you so much. The last question was from you, ne? The last question, Ms. Molefe. Can you just please repeat it? Thank you.
It was due to the compliance, right? But I wanted to, what's that question? I wanted you to provide examples of companies that have successfully implemented cyber indemnity policies in compliance with the POPI Act. If there's specific companies that you know of.
So I can't disclose our clients, unfortunately, because we have privilege. They have, but there are various companies. As I've said, banks do it effectively, but it's a matter of when you infiltrate it. You can't really block them. The technology is so sophisticated, and it's so advanced that it's just us as a legal team then is the PR side of it, where there's possible defamatory information or reputational damage that can come from that company because, your information is there, they were hacked and whatnot, so we manage that. But as for compliance, I can't disclose that. What I can say is that most entities are vulnerable.
A round of applause, please. We are moving to the second round. 5 hands. 1, 2, 3. It's a hand. Okay, can I start again? One, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the lady. I will make 2 more rounds. 2 more rounds. I'll also cover this side. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. My question is directed to Ms. Keaoleboga Molefe. So my question is in relation to the POPIA Act. So I understand that the POPIA Act is aimed at protecting the personal information of an individual by regulating how the information is processed. So my question was that how do we ensure that such a legislation is not used as a mechanism to conceal information that might be of a public interest? How do we ensure that public servants don't utilize this mechanism to avoid accountability? Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Skarisho. So my question directed to Mr. Chabalala is regarding the coalition. So I understand all the reason that you said, like the problems regarding the coalition, the legal nature of the agreements, the party interest over the people. So my question specifically is, can we be able to formalize this coalition so that they can be formal or legal to avoid these things? Like you can see what is happening. Today we're having this, tomorrow they can take that mayor out. Like if you maybe can be specific, next year it's highly likely that we can have a coalition government. So we'll have a president that tomorrow is a president, tomorrow we are both as our party, we take him down the following day. So if we don't formalize it or come with something, a legal agreement, I think going to 2024, we're going to have a problem. We're going to fire president every 2 days. And then my other question directed to the first speaker, I think is Cllr regarding the cybercrime. So can we say, regarding UNISA, because you normally get those SMSs, can we say they are also attacked specifically to UNISA? That's my question. You know, there's always those SMSs. So are we saying, can we say our information is safe with them or our information is all over? That's my question. Okay, the last one to Mr. Mashio, I'm sorry for. So, yeah, like the African Free Trade Agreement, I like it. It's a good thing. It's good in paper. Even in writing, it's good and it looks promising. So my question is specifically regarding the implementation. Can we say it's going to be implemented, considering the fact that we know that Africa is poor, they don't have... On one example, even if we've got this African Free Trade Agreement, we're going to mine, we're going to take those resources outside to Europe, they're going to come back. So what are we going to trade among Africa? So there is nothing. The question is, can it be successful? Like, I'm just worried. Can it be successful or just a good paper written that we are hopeful that it will happen, but there is no specific things?
Before you speak, Mr. Tete, can I just say something? Can the people who are asking questions just ask one question so that it's not a lot? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Cllr Tshivhenga from Unisa Davidson campus. My question is directed to Mr. Mashiko. Yeah, with regards to the rights that gives us access to basic needs, the socio-economic rights in South Africa. We know that in Africa we have high corruption, and particularly here in South Africa. And corruption sounds nice these days. It's more like something that is not a criminal act. Because we talk about it everywhere, but we don't see anything that is happening. In enforcing our socio-economic rights, we know that it is difficult to expose corruption or risks that we may come across in our companies or government. However, we know that there are measures that are put in place to combat corruption in our country and other acts, but they are ineffective because we see our leaders, they are coming in and out of courts every day, but there's nothing that is happening. Hence, I'm saying that corruption sounds nice. It's like it is not a criminal act. So do you think, my question is simple. Do you think that the whole criminal justice of South Africa, from the police investigations and the courts, is failing to combat corruption in South Africa? Or is there another way maybe we need to implement the acts or the provision of combating corruption in South Africa? Thank you.
My name is Prudence Moyo from EKURHULENI Unisa Davidson campus. My question is directed to Mr. Katlego Mashiko. In the conveniencing example, did court give grounds why the onus of protection or taking care was placed solely on ENS, whereas it was established that it was the purchaser who had the malware on his devices? In such matters, is contributory fault an element that is looked at? Thank you.
Greetings to the House at large. My name is Waitumelo Mahali. My question is directed at Ms. Gyalebo Khamilefe. Since creating jobs for the flourishing youth population is a priority in the country, don't you think the government will be reluctant to support technologies that threaten existing jobs?
Thank you so much. Ms. Gia, the first question was directed to you, ma'am.
So with regard to the protection of private information, this is, the act was enacted predominantly to protect the society's private information, not necessarily investigations. So in legal proceedings, criminal or any other regulatory body, your information will not be protected. There are exceptions to this act, which is criminal prosecutions, civil prosecutions, and any other regulatory body that needs certain information to investigate something, they will have the right to infiltrate. The POPI Act itself is there for the interest of the public, and not necessarily that you're not going to be prosecuted. However, what is interesting is that the POPI Act, because it protects personal information, also doesn't infiltrate when we are sitting on a breach response. So there's a breach of a company and lawyers are sitting in. Remember that the founding or one of the protecting principles in law is that a client has legal privilege. So we are there to protect any information that also may be juicy or illegal, you know, for that part. So in terms of privilege, that part you'll always be protected against. However, there are also exceptions to this privilege. When the Hawks come in, when the Hawks raided insurance companies because of their anti-competitive strategies, meaning they were against the competitive laws, they didn't consider privilege. They took all the documents. However, a court judgment came back and said, no, certain documents have legal privilege and you're not going to touch those. So it's important, there's a balance in how this information is distributed and what information must be protected versus what information won't be protected because of continuance of crime or corruption or any illegal activity. And then the second question was on data breach by Unisa. So it can be one of two things. So they can actually sell this information to the third parties, which is obviously in contravention of the POPI Act, and or their information or their spyware or their firewalls are not strong enough against the spyware from these hackers. So it has an obligation in terms of this act, which is both prosecutable through a fine or imprisonment. It has an obligation to protect our interests and our private information by ensuring that our information are held in secure places with the necessary technological intervention, and that this information can only be viewed for a specific purpose. So UNISA has to comply, you know, in terms of the POPI Act. And then why ENS was at fault. So this is law of delict. And if you take out your textbooks for law of delict, it says that a person who has the responsibility or who owes a legal duty must fulfill this legal duty. So in this instance, the court held that ENS knew of this potential risk of cyber infiltrations, and especially in the conveyancing industry, it's very popular that cyber hackers change bank accounts. So it's a known phenomenon. You, as a person who has this information and are transmitting sensitive information, has the duty to ensure that such information is transmitted in a way that is secure and will not compromise the third party. So because ENS had this knowledge that it's a big thing. There is a cyber crime, or there's a spyware and phishing that will actually infiltrate bank accounts, change them and send it as is. And actually there are previous case laws on this. The court held that it had the legal duty to first warn its client against such a possibility and also protect this data. And because the client was a victim, essentially, of the cyber fraud. So even with your banks, you always get an SMS saying, be careful, we will not send you a link for you to change your passwords and whatnot. They have that responsibility because they bear the legal duty to forewarn their clients or third parties. And that is why, and in terms of delict, you can place a person who has that legal duty responsible for any losses that you can incur, but that's an assignment for you to go through your textbook. And then, okay, maybe, because I don't remember the fourth one, you can go first.
I think Chabala, there was another.
Yeah, I'll.
I think Chabala will be asking the questions before me.
Thanks very much. I believe it's Sekhalisho. Yeah, no, thank you. I was beginning to feel redundant. It's either my presentation was very poor or it was so good that there are no questions. I think it's the last one. But the question is, how can we begin to formalize or strengthen the legal nature of these coalitions so that we don't have this instability of people being voted in, next thing, 2 weeks down, they're out and so forth. I think the context we must read that question is that we are a maturing democracy. Some of the components of our current state of democracy are not included in the laws or in the constitution as it was drafted at that time. So when you look at the reason why we are operating, the electoral system in South Africa is a proportional representation system, so that there's no dominance of one party over minority interest. That's why we have a PR system. But the PR system in its current format, as we're moving in this direction where we're seeing that there are these current changes in our political landscape, we need to consider other electoral systems now. For example, there is a system they call first past the post. You don't need to have a 50% plus one majority, but if you got the biggest percentage of votes, then you become, you occupy that certain position. We need to look at if we need to have an electoral reform in terms of the electoral system that elects public representatives, or if the existing legislation, the existing laws must have some amendments to speak to the current conditions of our political landscape. So where I am, I believe we need a review of the entire mechanism. Some of the people who directed our electoral system and our laws in 1993 to 1996, majority of them are not even alive anymore. They never expected that we would be going into this kind of political landscape. And now that we are here, we have foresight and we have the expertise. We have legal experts, we have governance experts, and we have the experience that the legislation is not giving us enough to run with. That's why people are being removed and replaced over the past 16 months. Maybe some of us here, as well as other experts on the panel and across the country, can advise maybe not just on the strengthening of coalition agreements, but on a review of the electoral system as a whole and how we elect public representatives so that they represent our interests more than they represent the interests of their parties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I've got two questions. First question, there was a statement that Africa is poor and technically we don't have much to trade with one another about, which I strongly disagree. I hate to disagree, but on this one, I strongly disagree because Africa has got vast of resources, natural resources, and such as gold, diamonds in Botswana and many other countries. And you'll note that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah also indicated that through agriculture, Africa can feed population of half the population that we have in the world, or that they had in the world at that time. So I do agree that we don't have resources. We do have resources. We do have things we can trade with one another about. Ethiopia has got coffee. South Africa, we've got other things. We've got ZZ2 that is also international. We've got many other things. Even the gold that we have here, if it is made a final product in Africa, we can trade on that as well, because I don't know if you are aware, but gold is taken out of Africa, and is turned into necklace and whatever, then is brought back and sold to Africans with a high price. So if we can have facilities to do all of those here in Africa, then we can be able to trade with one another. But even before that, we've got a lot of things that we can trade with one another. We can get oil. Nigeria is rich with oil. We can get oil from Nigeria, which Nigeria can trade with other African countries, obviously on lesser tariffs and the likes, and also other countries. I don't know if you are aware, but one of our leaders, Muammar Gaddafi, was killed, and we'll note that his country has got vast of oil. So it's not like these Western countries have got a lot of things to trade on. They mostly benefit based on taking away from us as Africans. So I hope that answers your question. And the last question, which I'll try to be as brief as possible because of time constraints, is ineffective measures to address corruption. On that one, I agree that indeed the country is not doing enough. Although we've got the National Development Plan, and South Africa is part of many other international agreements which are there to combat corruption, it is my view that not enough is being done. And in order to really arrive at the Africa we want, or South Africa we want, issues such as corruption must be addressed. Although government is seen as addressing this issue, but in my view, I will argue that there is not enough that is being done, because, for instance, one person may be removed because of the alleged corruption from government. Then when new administration come in, they bring that person that was removed by the previous president, then they make them, they become part of the government. That's recycling. So that's my argument that, or my answer to that is that in my view, I feel like corruption is not addressed properly. It's not addressed at all. Thank you very much.
Resistance. Oh, and then on the question of the government resistance towards the IR4, there's actually initiative from government that support this initiative, you know, which is obviously is not working for the bigger picture of our people, because people are losing jobs every day. People are not having the opportunities. People are used to working in the market. But what I love about this African continental free trade area is that it gives us that push towards Africa to create our own businesses, to create our own platforms, and to become the makers or the rainmakers for ourselves. So what is lacking within the fourth industrial revolution is the skills for it. South Africa is very behind in terms of innovation, technology, science, and everything like that. So that is where the government should be focusing rather than, you know, expediting this project out. And we should be now, there's a new technological hub that our former Premier of Gauteng opened, last year. Those are the initiatives that we should be taking. And, we get primary schools that are learning coding now and IT at a very young age. Those are the initiatives that we should be taking before these implementations of new technologies. But there is no resistance from the government. They have created platforms. There's the CI4IR or something, the Cyril Ramaphosa Fourth Industrial Revolution initiative that is out there. But the skills first, the development of our people first, and also the land, please, the land.
Thank you so much for the successful round. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to apologize. I will have to temporarily cut the questions because I'm getting pressure from the catering people that they must be out of here by 2:30. So can I just continue with the program, close it, and then have lunch? The speakers are still going to be here during lunch, so we can also engage. On the next item, I have presentation of the Foci plan and introduction of the keynote speaker, which is going to be rendered by our president, Bono Masakona, who is the former secretary of the EFFSC, UNUSA president, chairman of the Academic and Professional Staff Association. President Masakona, you are welcome. Comrades, slogan nyana.
No, thank you very much. If they are not singing, it means I'm no longer in charge. I think I must observe protocol. My national leader here from the June 16 Revolutionary Student Movement, the Deputy President, is here. So I'd like him to come forward so that he can just say hello and then we move speedily. Comrade Deputy President, please come and greet your students.
Manja, manja, bawethu, qina mfundo omnyama zabalazayo, qina, qina mfundo omnyama zabalazayo, qina. Apologies, Speaker. The President was on his way to this program, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he couldn't make it. He sincerely apologized. Thanks.
Nobody wanna see us together. Hey, nobody wanna see us together. Oh, mommy, mommy, no, 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 no. Hey, nobody wanna see us together. Hey, nobody wanna see us together. Hi, oh. No, 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 no. How no, 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 no. How let me tell you about the story of my life. Hey, my mother was a kitchen girl. Hey, my father was a garden boy. Hey, that's why I'm a freedom fight. Let me tell you about the story of my life. Hey, my mother was a kitchen girl. Hey, my father was a garden boy. Hey, that's why I'm a freedom fight. Hey, wafunde sizofunda mahal. Hai botena sofunda ngenkane. Tina sofunda mala. Funda mal, hebu sofunda mal. Jesu kunyana ntate mude more hawe le more. Jesu kunyana ntate mude more hawe le more. Re hawe le more na. Re hawe le more na. Jesu kunyana ntate mude more hawe le more. Jesu kunyana ntate mude more hawe le more. Hore hawe le more na. Hore hawe le more na. Jesu kunyana ntate mude more hawe le more. Jesu kunyana ntate mude more hawe le more. Hore hawe le more na. No, thank you very much. Amandla. No, thank you very much, comrades and friends. We want to take this opportunity, Program Director, to give many thanks to all the students that were able to be here from early in the morning. Many apologies once more that we have started late. Unfortunately, due to the terrible weather, it affected many of the logistical arrangements. But once more, I wanted to extend an apology from the head of the law clinic, Advocate Muruta, who could not be here due to other work commitments. So Advocate Muruta is the head of the Unisa Law Clinic, and therefore today on his behalf, we had the senior attorney, Ms. Ketane, who came here to open the program. The Foci plan is not a very tricky matter, neither is it a sensitive matter. These are some of the activities that are designed to contribute to the tacit knowledge of our students. But most importantly, these are programs and activities that are designed to assist our students so that even beyond the qualification itself, they must be able to be productive, they must be able to be competitive in the broader society. So those are some of the activities that we are actually having. So part of the program that we're having, which is meant for our students, is a students' debate. So the students' debate is a project that is designed to even improve the oratory skills of our students. As you can see how I'm articulating, I'm a product of students' debate. Some of us, when we joined here at Unisa, we could not speak English. But outside of students' debate, thanks to the students' command, we were taught to speak English from the political boardroom. But however, because not all of us are going to join that long process of politics, the Unisa Law Clinic has designed very important skills that is going to assist you to improve the quality of engagement, the quality of your arguments, and so on and so forth, and stuff like that. So in simple terms, the students' debate is actually meant for first and second year students. So the project is aimed at enhancing and developing oratory capacities and research skills for College of Law students through participation in annual debates. The focus will be on developing the students' writing, presentations, oratory, and argumentation skills for undergraduates, LLB students. This will be addressed by a focused one-day debate seminar, and then you're going to be constituted in different sites to a range of current and very topical issues. Each student will receive guidance and feedback on how to improve their arguments and presentation style for academics involved in the project. So the student debate is currently open as we speak. So all the first year and the second year students who are interested to participate in the students debate, you are much more than welcome. By the way, it was in the students debate where on my second year, I participated. And in fact, by the way, when we arrived there, I was rejected by the team captain because we're coming from a shutdown. And then the team captain says, no, I'm not wearing formal, we're wearing party regalia, we're suiting. We don't represent the actual objective of students' debate and how a lawyer should look like. That captain is Shatadi Poshoko. So immediately after Shatadi Poshoko rejected me, I was taken to another team B. And then at least they had a mercy to welcome us on a condition that tomorrow we must get a shirt. So I got, fortunately, a Mamelodi Sundowns t-shirt, and I was able to be welcomed. But Shatadi Poshoko, little did she know that the stone she rejected was going to defeat her tomorrow. So on the finals, luckily we were able to defeat her team, but we appreciated and liked her talent. And from there, we formed a structure for law students called UNISA Law Students Association, which I am its outgoing president for those that are ambitious. But Shatadi Poshoko became the Secretary General, and that structure then went to the SRC Council. And Shatadi Poshoko is the Secretary General of the university and a member of Council. And the product of that was the stone she rejected. So please do not reject some of these stones, comrades and friends. Another matter is on street law. So street law is for second and third year students. So the program is designed to introduce community to the relevant law and human rights applicable to them as South African citizens. It is directed at educating people on all levels of education to provide a practical understanding of the law and the legal system incorporated in the field of law. The program provides training to LLB students in various regions, and thereafter they are allowed to present informational seminars, workshops to community groups, schools, all age homes, etc., and so forth. The rationale behind street law is to train students so that they are able to go to the greater society and assist our indigenous members. So street law is designed in the following category. So what they do is that they get the second and third year students, they teach you important topics on the law, maybe on wills and so on and so forth. From there, they dispatch these students to go to communities, send you either to prisons, send you to churches. From there, they give you platforms. You teach members of our community about the law. You teach them about the important rights that they're having. So part of the things that we actually want to request, because we brought the Speaker of EKURHULENI here, and the Speaker of EKURHULENI must partner with the UNISA law students so that they assist our law students that are based in the EKURHULENI campus in as far as the advancement and the development of this project is concerned. So street law is a very central program to the College of Law because it speaks to the core value of the university, amongst others, which is of community engagement. And also we've got the moot courts. So the moot court is for those who would like to become lawyers. So myself, I am obsessed with knowledge production. I'm obsessed with teaching and learning. So that means that we are counted out on moot court. Moot court is for students who do not appreciate the fact that it's very hot in South Africa to wear black gowns and practice in a court of law. So those students who would like to be lawyers, this is very, very, very tricky. Ms. Ketania, our senior attorney, was once the coach of the moot court. By the way, the secretary will do the closing remarks here. He was just recently pronounced as the champion, together with his team of Tshwane, of the UNISA moot court, which is a competition for all regions of UNISA. The least said about EKURHULENI speaker, the better, because those comrades, I think, were moved in the first round. So something must be done there to improve. So the moot court is a mock judicial proceeding which is set up to examine a hypothetical case as an academic exercise for third and fourth year LLB students who are registered for the whole academic year. The objective of the moot court is to provide students with practical mentorship from attorneys, advocates, and academics in developing arguments while applying the law, legal drafting, and to develop students' litigation techniques. So once you have applied for a moot court, they bring you, they give you a hypothesis, you do all the competition, you outcompete each other, then they take the best three that will represent the region at whatever strategic location that will be selected. And then from there we have the practical legal skills, which is extremely important. It's designed for final year students. This is where you train the artistry of being a legal practitioner. So the practical legal skills program aims to provide free extracurricular practical legal education for fourth-year LLB students with a focus on analytical skills, the application of theory, and an appreciation of the practical nature and consequences of theory. Students are presumed to have an existing knowledge of theoretical law of subjects that they have already passed prior learning, in particular civil procedure and criminal procedure. The practical legal skills program endeavors to channel students' theoretical knowledge and enhance it practically in research and analytical skills, as well as various litigation techniques on real legal questions to which we encounter at the UNISA Law Clinic. So, comrades and friends, those are the 4 programs that are offered by the UNISA Law Skills, so that they attempt to upskill and reskill our students, so that no single student must graduate without an informative understanding of the real practical platform in the greater society. But however, comrades and friends, today my task importantly is to introduce our keynote address. And I must apologize to the speaker because we met in a very funny way. She used to WhatsApp a lot, and I used to blue tick it because I was not aware what I'm dealing with. So I was not responding because we were busy with students' issues, saying, come to the campus, come to the campus. So when people are texting and so on, it was problematic. So the speaker took a very serious offense onto that matter, and then I was reported somewhere else. And then we had to apologize, like political people apologize. But however, we are forgiven today. We are very much privileged as the UNISA Law Clinic, together with all the students that are here today, to be hosting the office of the Speaker of EKURHULENI. Yesterday, she just successfully, as the coalition subject was a dialogue here, she just successfully brought a new mayor under her proper guidance. So we don't know whether we should welcome those developments or not, because we are not political people but legal students. So Cllr Tshivhenga holds a Bachelor of Laws from the University of South Africa and a National Diploma from the University of Johannesburg in Information Technology, where she majored in Business Analysis and Information System, a certificate in Leadership in Municipal Governance from the University of Witwatersrand School of Governance, a certificate in Project Management in Public Administration from Unisa, a certificate in Legislative Drafting for municipalities from Justice College, and 2 certificates from Vulindlela Academy in Monitoring and Evaluation in SA Municipalities and Performance Management Statistics and Probabilities in SA Municipalities. So you can tell by the qualification that she got that she was preparing this path. She knew. So the topic that the speaker is going to enshrine us on is on the 4th Industrial Revolution, municipality steps to conquer the digital divide and reduce inequalities. Councillor Tshivhenga, please come forward. May we all stand and welcome our speaker. Leadership idumela. Leadership idumela. Leadership idumela. Dumela. You dumela. Leadership idumela. Leadership idumela. Leadership idumela. Dumela. You dumela. Leadership idumela. Leadership idumela. Leadership idumela. Dumela, dumela, you dumela. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Bono, Comrade President. Your skills of singing are there, but constituency is very difficult. I don't know if it's the weather or what is it. But nonetheless, I greet you this afternoon, our program director, Ms. Tshimologo Mathabate, Comrade President Bono Masakona, the leadership of the EFF Student Command and other student political formation, the leadership of the university, the leadership of the Law Clinic, our fellow councillor, Councillor Chabalala, fellow panelists. I think we must give you the hope as well, as it is already alluded on my profile, that indeed I'm also a product of this university. And indeed, I'm also a product of the Law Clinic. Or obviously, I'm of a different generation, but I also want to indicate that I got my LLB 3 days ago, Comrade President, so don't ask me difficult questions. Ne? Yeah, my topic, as it's already indicated, is the fourth industrial revolution, municipality steps to conquer the digital divide and reduce inequalities. It is an honor and privilege to address the Law Clinic 4K plan launch, but even more interestingly, I am hugely impressed by the quality of the discussions. The discipline and the class, Comrade President, is unmatched. And to my external guests, commissars, comrades and friends, it is worthy to share that our university and its thousands of students are celebrating 150 years anniversary of this giant and intellectual landscape. As a member of a revolutionary organization that is turning 10 years old this year, I can wholeheartedly understand your jubilation and excitement at celebrating yet another milestone. Just to say it again, my name is Cllr Tshivhenga. I am the Speaker of the City of EKURHULENI. Councillor Chabalala, in his context, he refers to himself as the youngest ward councillor in EKURHULENI. So maybe in line with that, I would refer to myself as the youngest speaker in Gauteng, if not in the country. I am also a PR councillor deployed by the Economic Freedom Fighters in the Council of EKURHULENI. I'm deeply honored, humbled to be here today to share my thoughts and perspectives on the readiness of local governments for the fourth industrial revolution, particularly in terms of service delivery. The EKURHULENI metropolitan area faces many challenges with numerous areas and informal settlements. These are places where all of us come from. And it's still lacking when it comes to providing essential basic services. In our pursuit to address these challenges, we recognize that the fourth industrial revolution presents both risks and opportunities for local government. If we seize these opportunities, we can leverage technological advancements to improve the lives of millions of people, particularly the 4 million that myself and Councillor Ngaba have left in the city of EKURHULENI. Before we delve into the potential benefits of the fourth industrial revolution, we must first acknowledge that the current state of service delivery in local government and many communities such as those in Thokoza, in Vosloorus and Katlehong are still plagued by the lack of access to water, consistent electricity and proper sanitation infrastructure. We believe that it is our duty to address these issues as a matter of urgency, and the fourth industrial revolution presents us with the tools to do so. Before we jump into the seventh day, the day of resting provided to us by our Lord, It is our understanding of concepts like the fourth industrial revolution that I want to begin with the first day, the genesis of what an industrial revolution is, and build from there. In his textbook on the fourth industrial revolution, Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, describes the fourth industrial revolution as an appearance of new technologies, novel ways of perceiving the world that triggers profound change in economic and social structures. The first industrial revolution began in the late 18th century, and it was characterized by the introduction of steam power and mechanization. The second industrial revolution began in the late 19th century and was characterized by the introduction of electricity and mass production. The third industrial revolution began in the late 20th century and was characterized by the introduction of computers and automation. Comrade President, I feel that it was important to state so because one of the days when we were watching Parliament, we had a minister who eloquently spoke of the fourth industrial revolution. And one of the famous doctors asked, okay, what is the third industrial revolution? And the answer was not there. And I believe that because we are now in an era where we speak so much of the fourth, we forget what has happened with the first, second, and third. The fourth industrial revolution is the current wave of digital transformation that is taking place in the world today. It is characterized by the introduction of new technologies such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and blockchain, amongst others. As stated earlier, these technologies profoundly affect the way we live, we work, travel, and interact with one another. We must ensure that benefits of the fourth industrial revolution are shared equitably and that marginalized communities, I think somebody asked this question earlier, that what is to be done when it comes to the digital divide. We need to ensure that nobody is left behind by focusing on the practical application of these technologies. We can address the pressing needs of our people while mitigating the risks associated with rapid technological change. In harnessing the power of the fourth industrial revolution for service delivery in local governments, we must ask ourselves, how does this benefit our people, particularly the poor and the working class? It is essential that we prioritize solutions that have a direct and meaningful impact on the lives of the most vulnerable citizens. As leaders in local government, we must begin to accept that the agility factor required for creative and innovative responsiveness to this technological advancement, it's truly lacking. This is especially evident in many municipal environments, especially in developing countries, who experience a critical shortage of resources, high levels of poverty and unemployment, a lack of education and skills, as well as a limited access to technology. It is essential that local government institutions establish a set of common values and operating principles that inform policy to integrate changes. Such policy must not only create opportunity within technological advancements, but also create effective transition towards new systems to effectively sustain service delivery mandates. Local government is also key in supporting sustainable development goals on the very practical level of integrating e-government is also critical in achieving our mandate in service delivery and also in priority areas for the integration of transformative digital support system in areas such as electricity, supply, waste management, and government structures that require less resources. the integrated development plans. Comrade President, we hope that our student in one of the modules would have learned a bit. I think it's the module constitutional law. It's the second year module, where it speaks of your different spheres of government. This term, you would have heard it there. So the integrated development plan is a plan that municipalities embarks on in order to plan for services of the people. So here, in short, and in the language of the law students, we are saying, when we go to our people to do consultative meetings to put their plans in the IDP, we need to ensure that our goals and objectives must be integrated with the fourth industrial revolution. So even in our planning, we need to ensure that we speak of the current issues in terms of technology, right? We've been having a lack in terms of having proactive integration of IDPs and the fourth industrial revolution. I guess that could be one of the reasons why you as young people don't have much interest on what we do as government, because we have left you behind. Right, so the main question then becomes, what is to be done? What is to be done to harness the power of the fourth industrial revolution in local governments? These are the areas that I believe we must prioritize. The issue of access to clean water. By leveraging advanced sensor technology and data analytics, we can monitor and maintain water supply networks effectively, ensuring that all citizens in areas such as Etwatwa, somebody said they are from Etwatwa, yes, and Davidton have access to clean water. We can enhance reliable electricity supply through the implementation of renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power. And we can provide sustainable and stable electricity in the most remote communities in areas such as Guatema and Tsakani. These are areas that are further out of EKURHULENI and towards the Mpumalanga province. For us to improve infrastructure, we can employ advanced construction technologies and materials. We can build resilient and sustainable infrastructure in informal settlements, such as Zonki Zizwe in EKURHULENI, while serving the needs of our communities for generations to come. We can also enhance on sanitation services by utilizing innovative waste management systems. We can ensure that all citizens in communities like your Muleleki, Polar Park have access to clean and safe sanitation facilities. So let's get into the role of local governments in the fourth industrial revolution. Local governments play a very crucial role in successful implementation of the industrial revolution, because if you would understand in terms of the different spheres of government, local government is where everything happens. It's where all of us are. It's the wards. Because if somebody says it's a national government, you wonder, where is that? Who is there? But when you say it's a ward, it's a municipality, you know that it is where the people are. It is where all of us are. So we must actively invest in and promote the use of this technology to improve service delivery in our cities, while we also address the risks associated with rapid technology change. These include providing training, support, and displaced workers, as well as investing in education to prepare future generation for demands of technologically advanced society. Somebody spoke about this. I think it's that gentleman, that how do we then get everyone to be on the same page, what we call the digital divide. Moreover, local governments must work closely with communities to ensure that the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution reaches the poor and working class by fostering collaboration between public sector and private sector, as well as community organizations. We can create tailor-made solutions that truly address the needs of most vulnerable citizens. As public representatives of the city of Ekurhuleni, we must champion the needs of our communities and work tirelessly to ensure that the fourth industrial revolution serves as a force for good by focusing on practical applications of new technologies in the realms of service delivery. And in the final analysis, Comrade President, my submission would be mismatched as a product of the Unisa law students' law degree to not touch on the impact of the fourth industrial revolution and its profound impact on the legal profession. As technology advances, legal professionals are increasingly relying on digital tools and technologies to provide legal services. This includes the use of artificial intelligence to automate legal processes such as document review, contract analysis, and additionally, legal professionals are using blockchain technology to secure, store, and transfer legal documents. The use of digital tools and technology is also changing the way legal services are delivered. Legal professionals are increasingly relying on the online platform to provide legal services to clients, such as online dispute resolution and virtual courtrooms. Additionally, legal professionals are using data analytics to gain insight into legal trends and to identify potential legal risks. The use of digital tools and technology is also changing the way legal professionals are trained and educated. Legal professionals are increasingly relying on online courses, training programs to stay up to date with the latest legal developments. Additionally, legal professionals are using virtual reality and augmented reality to simulate legal scenarios and gain hands-on experience. Overall, Comrade President, the fourth industrial revolution is having a profound impact on the legal profession. As technology advances, legal professionals are increasingly relying on digital tools and technologies to provide legal services. And to provide legal services, deliver legal services, and stay up to date on the latest development. This takes me back to my first week as the Speaker of EKURHULENI. I found myself in court. We quickly drove to court. When we arrived at court, they said, no, it's a virtual court. And I said, no, but it's not COVID anymore. It's not COVID anymore. Why is it a virtual court? And we were told that times have changed. Times have changed, and it's time for us to change as well, so that we are not left behind with regards to the digital divide. As the city of EKURHULENI, we are trying to have internet and Wi-Fi for everyone in the city as a basic service. Our libraries have Wi-Fi, even though it's not up to standard. You will know the requirements of the digital divide. How do you describe something as a digital divide? You then know that if you don't have access, it also speaks of the quality of the internet speed and so on. So we are not there yet, but we are getting there. And we are going to advise that as legal students, we need to move with the times. We need to ensure that we are on par with what everyone is doing currently. I don't foresee problems with your generation, but with the older generation, then there's that digital divide, that gap where it's very difficult to even send a WhatsApp to senior counsel and they write that in the legal language on WhatsApp. You're like, no, just text, use text language. So all in all, we wish as a local government to work very well with the Unisa Law Clinic, because public participation and community participation, especially the participation of young people, is very close to our hearts. So we want to work well with the Law Clinic in advancing community participation, especially that of young people, and to improve on how services are delivered in our country. Colleagues, commissars, comrades, friends, many thanks for your attention, and I hope to be addressing clarity-seeking questions. I salute you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, our speaker. Without any further waste of time, as you can see, that catering people are already rushing us, therefore we must rush ourselves in response to the demand. We are now going to take a couple of questions because we are now running out of time. So we'd like that those that seek to get some clarity, to make inputs or to interrogate the submission that the speaker has made to the rest of you, this is an opportunity to engage it in that particular regard. I must as well, Speaker, note the presence of the DSG of the student movement. We had thought that the DP will touch everything else, but he was just here to say hello on behalf of number one. But however, I'd like that those that would like to raise some questions who are opening the first round, so please may you raise any questions that you'd like to have. The last time I checked, there were about 20 hands that were up. So we can throw them up so that the speaker can deal with them at once. We'll start from my far right, the biggest region. I'm not sure the validity of this matter must be dealt with scientifically, let's say, by another platform. But the leader that comes from the biggest region, apparently, will take the second question, the third question, my brother, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, seven, in that particular regard. That will constitute our first round. We can start from my far right.
Greetings, Speaker. Mine is just short. I only have 2 questions for you, Speaker. It goes as this, that do you experience any challenges as a woman working in a predominantly masculine environment as a female speaker of parliament, of legislature rather, of the municipality rather? And are you, because since then that you are fairly new in your position, and what will the impact of your position to be in the EKURHULENI community? And just to further extend it, the role of a municipality speaker is not usually understood or widely understood as that, unless it's a national speaker of parliament or so on and so forth. So do you have any plans to conscientize your immediate constituency, which is the community, about the role and anything related? Thank you.
No, thank you very much, colleagues. I think that because we're pressed on time, we'll only take one question so that we can round up everything else.
Okay, leadership, this one is directed to you. I think you said we can ask any question. So I just wanted to ask, regarding the Unisa Law Clinic programs, which is for the debate in Durban and all that stuff, I just wanted to know, how do you classify a first and a second year student more Unisa? Because some people are doing 6th year at Unisa here. No, it's not a joke, but I'd like to know, how is it classified that way? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Noted.
Thank you very much. Oh, hi, Moral. Hi, Moral. You seem like you are sleeping. Hi, Moral. Thank you very much. My name is Jabulo Manana. I just have this big voice, yabo. So, yeah, my name is Jabulo Manana. I come from Davidson. We are a Unisa Davidson, EKURHULENI, as they call it. So, University Esekas. So, I'm from the township. Thank you. So, my question is directed to you, Speaker. So, my question is that to just emphasize the question which was asked by our brother there, because our Compass President Bono said that you will talk only one question. He says that, can you at least emphasize your role as a speaker of a municipality? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Musa Bukhulwani and I'm from Unisa, Florida. So my question is for Mr. Mashiko. I don't see him, but yeah. Okay. My question is for you, Mr. Mashiko. Can you please sit down? Thank you. Thank you. My question is, well, I heard you speak about right to housing, right? Not naming a few. But how can a person say they have right to housing and actually a South African citizen but based from Department of Housing? We have foreign nationals occupying spaces that are not even qualified to occupy. But based on Section 9 of the Constitution, everybody has the right to equality, right? But what extent does that right go? The right to equality. To what extent? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're left with the last two.
Good day. My name is Mana from Johannesburg Region, Gandhi campus. So my question is based on the fourth industrial revolution. I just want to ask Uguti, doesn't the implementation of AIs pose threats to the employment of lawyers in particular? And how do we expect them as robots to relate to real challenges that are encountered by real human beings in communities? Thank you.
Indanda. My question will be addressed to this I don't know your name, and maybe it might affect maybe even the speaker too. My question was about the coalition government. Since we are experiencing a lot of negative things in our coalitions. Oh, sorry. So I've kind of like picked up some flaws in our coalition governments, which I believe some of them you didn't talk about. In our democratic system, we have, it's normally generally expected that the mandate, like the people in power in these positions, like they get the mandate from the people, normally through the ballot box. Yeah? So you guys there on top, like you have a tendency of like taking the legitimacy of this democratic system where like you negotiate things through bedrooms, where like you find out that in a municipality, if you're saying it's a coalition government, you say the majority party must rule, right? So you find out that a party with a minority, maybe with just one seat, through negotiations just got a position as a mayor, just like we saw with Makwarela and other things which happened in EKURHULENI there. So you find out that us, as voters, we are voting, but you guys are deciding other things. Oh, sorry, Megan. So you guys tend to decide for us when you're up there. And another thing with this coalition is like the dilution of accountability. Like we totally don't see who's responsible. We don't see who's doing this and who's not doing that. Because like I remember in EKURHULENI, I think this week somewhere, there was an issue where we see through peer councillors who are celebrities on Facebook who will tell us, these ones didn't vote for this, these ones didn't vote for this. Like I think actually say came up with something which it was about the reduction of toilets, and you guys, the EFF, and who, the ANC, decided to vote against. Where like this thing turns out to be, it's like party-to-party politics, where like you ignore too much service delivery. Now you're just fighting each other, using us mostly. So I want to understand, or where are we going with coalitions? Like, are we going to have something, or it's just you guys who are going to just fight each other? Can I say the last one? The speaker, please.
No, I think it's noted, my brother. Otherwise, they are taking over the platform here.
Afternoon, my name is Peggy Boyce. My question, I think, is directed to the councillor. I think it will also be directed to the speaker as well. I think I'll start from the Constitution, which is Section 8.1, which places a positive duty on the organs of state, which the municipality is part of that as well. Now, from what the councillor said, he said that you're looking at the legislation that is not there to govern the coalitions. My question is perhaps why can't we utilize the common law, the contract law, so to speak, to be specific? Because then you are able to outline exactly what your deliverables must be as far as that coalition is concerned. And should there be anything that is outside of that contract, you can then be able to then enforce the contract. Because ultimately, if you don't do properly your service delivery, then you can then take that particular party to the courts, and at least they can be, at least you can get in there and get some fines for not having followed your contract terms. So that's my question, is to say, how far can you, how is it that you can't utilize the contract law whilst legislation is perhaps trying to catch up? Why can't we utilize contract law so that we are able to outline specifically what the service delivery levels should be? Because as it is, there is zero service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the questions that have been posed to the speaker, and also the two questions that are divided amongst the two panelists. From now on, unfortunately, we are not going to take another round. Otherwise, the catering will leave with the food. So you'll have to decide what is primary at this particular stage. So if you want to defy it, it's not a problem. But you must know that unlike political people, your stomach will not be speaking. So we want to advise you that follow politicians there in parliament who speak with the stomach. So your stomach must listen, comrades. Once the speaker is concluded, we are going to present gifts. And immediately once all the gifts are presented, we'll then adjourn this session for lunch until we meet on another program of great value. Speaker, please come forward and then answer the questions. And then from there, the panelists as well may conclude with all the presentation that have been brought forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade President. Yeah, indeed, I think I praised you too soon, and I was hoping that you will be very lenient on me when I said I only got my degree 3 days ago. But you seem to be very relentless. But thank you very much. Let us appreciate the questions. What I will do is that I will try to be as informative as possible and try to cover as many questions as possible. And as a senior figure and a senior person, generally, we will reprimand where we need to reprimand the Comrade President. Definitely, we experience a lot of challenges as a female in a world of patriarchy. in a masculine world. Hence, we also need to push ourselves to match. Comrade President, when they go to these conferences or assemblies, as they call it in the organization, they say, no, if you believe in this thing of feminism, you must contest us, be on the same par with us. So the challenge is that as women, we are oppressed. We do want to contest the space, but people that support us are not majority of women. I have first experience in that. I lost a regional conference a couple of years ago because I was not supported by women, right? So the issue of the masculinity of our world, the patriarchal system of our world, is perpetuated by us as women. We understand that in terms of our economic structure, you have your white monopoly capital that has oppressed us for many years. But generally, as an African people, we have not tried to push the interest of women. And in answering the question previously, our colleague said, we must accept that we are Africans. We must accept that it is our culture. It is what is said. But it's very difficult because politics have nothing to do with that culture. So as a woman, you find yourself in different worlds at the same time, and you have to adapt to all those worlds. So the impact and what we try to do in this world is that we try to empower women as much as we can. Myself personally, you will see the team in my office is all women. My strategic advisor is a woman. My spokesperson is a woman. So we try to empower women, but to get women to move with us. I'm happy when I look around the room, I see a lot of beautiful faces of women. So, Comrade President, I think we are making inroads in the legal fraternity. And we should be happy and celebrate that we are trying to close the inequality gap when it comes to that. Yes, it also affects our position, obviously, as the speaker. Being a woman, we have in the municipality what we call the Troika or PMT. Legal student, you know what the Troika is if you read the notes in that module, right? And of the Troika that we have is three people, is the mayor, the whip of council, the speaker. I'm the only woman there. If you would have seen and you are following political engagement, we had a press briefing yesterday. It was all men and I was just there. So we still have a lot to do, but in elaborating on the roles of the speaker, a speaker presides over, well, the speaker is elected by majority of councillors. In the Council of City of EKURHULENI, we have 224 councillors, and I was elected by majority of them, including Councillor Ngaba here. So, yeah, so we're elected, and our roles is to preside over what we call the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee determines the rules that governs us as councillors or the entire council. We preside over the Programming Committee. Programming Committee is the one that agrees that these items and these issues are the one that needs to be debated in council. But most importantly, we preside over council. What is a council? Council is a body that is composed of all councillors, right? In, you know, municipalities, you don't just wake up and you decide that you are going to change things. Every decision has to go through that body called council. It's the highest decision-making body of the municipality. So there, we pass bylaws. Bylaws are those things that are saying, Oroskala Tela does been. don't do that, do this. Your dog, only the issue of pit bulls. I'm sure many of you are not aware that we have a dog policy in the city of EKURHULENI. We have those policies, don't build walls where you are not supposed to build. Those are bylaws. And then we make the law, obviously, of how we govern the city, but you would know as law students that those laws must not contravene laws of the higher structures, which will be your national laws or laws in the provincial sector. The Office of the Speaker is the middle person between the community and the council. So we do a lot of public participation. When there's a fire somewhere, Office of the Speaker has to run there to extinguish. When community is crying, we are the ones. Public participation processes where we go and ask community, what is it that you want? The needs analysis, the integrated development plan is facilitated by the Office of the Speaker because we have that mandate to do public participation. And most importantly, we do what we called oversight. Oversight is a role that we play on the executive. There's somebody who spoke and said there's no accountability. There's no such a thing as there's no accountability. Accountability, fighters and comrades, is not now you don't want a PR councillor to be a celebrity. They have a right to be on their social media, right? And we need to learn that as a people, that we must not reduce our people to objects. I mean, whenever tell a PR councillor, let's go sekisha, right? You must ask, what is your mandate as a PR councillor, right? My mandate is that hosna electricity. If community I want to address that issue, I go to the municipality. My mandate is to facilitate community meetings, to do whatever. And anything outside that, obviously, it's a personal thing, right? PR councillors and ward councillors must be allowed to take selfies, right? They must be allowed to, we have different ethics and different principles as people, right? Depending on how young we are, how old we are, where were we born, what kind of family structure we were brought up in. But anything outside the mandate, we must not be too critical on our people. Because whatever those white people do in their spaces, we don't know. Right? You only see on the morning after Valentine's Day that this person is brutally shot and killed a girlfriend, what. And we view that as okay. But if it's us as black people, it's a big problem. So we need to be very conscious, Comrade President. We need to be very conscious as a people. We need to focus. We need to focus as young people. Our country has gone to the dogs because we are focusing on those things. You find a person on Facebook is asking a question that they can Google and get an answer of. It shows that we are not focused. So let us focus as young people. Let us focus on the imperatives, on what is important, on the future of this country. Because our time has come and gone. So you are the future. You are the people. When you are at platforms like this, you must ask important questions. You must ask serious questions. Ask building questions, right? We spoke of RDPs. She said RDPs are, you said we have foreign nationals, yes, occupying. Somebody spoke earlier, our future doctor spoke about the corruption in this country. We have a serious challenge with regards to that. And the reason why we have so much corruption is because we are not a conscious society. or where we stay, rebabaza like criminals, criminal activities. Ntho tse di re kgatlang kore people are at konka, ba popa di champagne, what. We are not focused. We are not focused. You don't know what your rights are. You guys, ladula strateng soreji iflowe beke kaofela. And linori PR cancel out on Facebook, uki celebrate. Instead of doing the right thing, let's do the right thing. I'm not too hard on you, ne? I'm just making you an example. Don't take offense. You understand? We don't know basic things. All of us. We do. How many of you here are registered to vote? You are exempted. Even you are. Yeah. So those type of things are the things that we need in society. Don't come and want to blame us. Your coalition, what. You are the ones. You are the creator of these things. Ali vote. Right? If we are voted, voted the other way. Right? We hide our granny's IDs when voting comes because we know what they're going to do. So, like, on a more serious note, we need a politically conscious society for this thing at the coalition or stop. You might want to blame government as much as you want. They did not prepare us for this. They should do, somebody said the contract, what? Contract law. Hypo. That's a branch of private law. I can comrade president. Yes, so you must be a society that is decisive. Then there won't be any need for such things to happen. It's good that today you have the mayor today, tomorrow that guy is not the mayor. And the context that you need to understand, you cannot say to us that there are particular words that were used that I want to use. You decide for us. You gave us the mandate. Myself, I'm a PR counselor. Ne? PR stands for proportional representative. One seat of a PR counselor is made up of 6,000 votes, or 4, is it 4 now? 4 to 6,000 votes. So I'm not representing my jacket. I'm representing 4,000 people. I'm making a decision. That is the power of your vote. And obviously you can't have a moria of people there in council saying, hi, we want to make the decision. You have elected people to make the decision. So you are stuck with us, right? You are stuck with us. And even in the next phase of election, you don't make a decisive decisions. You are going to be stuck with that, right? There's nothing you can do. How now a vote of confidence when it comes to Bo Councillor Ngaba as ward councillors. Most people come 3 days after election. We don't want the councillor anymore. What? You voted for the guy 3 days ago. So you must live by your decisions. You must be honest and truthful to yourselves, right? I don't think, Councillor Shabalala, we are going to be taking the blame for the challenges of coalition because the constituencies have not given us a decisive mandate for us to be able to have stability, right? The fourth industrial revolution, does its impact, I missed that question, its impact on human interactions, or, yeah, can you maybe say that again? Intelligence. Okay. Okay, thank you. It's similar to posting threats in terms of the general public. If you don't move with the times, utlo shalla morao. But as a government, we have a responsibility to ensure that the digital divide, or it's sort of an inequality of technology. You know and understand what inequality means, Agar, where we have different, like a big gap between one class of society with the next. So it's similar to that we need to then come and collaborate with the UNUSA. We need to now do things differently. When I came in as a student, we were not writing exams online, virtually, right? There's nothing that has traumatized me than that owl. What is it called again? The invigilator app, you know? I went and I was ready to write the exam, and then it said, invigilator app, right? So we need to move with the times. It will definitely affect us. The risks and opportunities are there. But as a people, we must now be moving towards a positive, right? We have moved through the industrial revolutions 1, 2, and 3. So we will never regress to go back to go back. So we are moving forward. And if we don't catch up, it means we are going to be left behind. But it is these efforts such as that we are here for that will then allow us to catch up and to be able to move with the times. I think somebody said the zero service delivery, it cannot be. Otherwise, all of us would not be here today. Right? We have water. It might not be the quality that we want. We pass through some potholes. So they can never be zero service delivery, but government must definitely be held accountable so that they produce the quality of service that our people deserves. You cannot say because services of government are subsidized and then you accept and it's a norm. The grass is so high at the library and then we agree. It cannot be, right? We need to hold our government accountable and they must give us quality services. Comrade President, if there isn't anything else, I thank you.
Okay, just to thank you, Speaker, for answering part of the questions that was posed to me. So the question, just to refresh your memories, is on rise to housing, why we say we have that right, and also comparing it with equality right, which is in terms of the Constitution, in terms of Section 26, it indicates that everyone has got the right to housing. And also Section 9 of the Constitution speaks on equality, that people must be treated equally. But as we may be aware in terms of Section 2 of the Constitution is the supreme law, and laws that are made must advance what the Constitution has actually indicated, or what Constitution gives to the people. And we have got such law which was created to advance Section 26, which is the Housing Act. And Housing Act indicates that people who have got a right to housing are all citizens and permanent residents of the Republic. And just to get more on that as well, you can read the Grootboom case. The Grootboom case that I spoke of when I was doing my presentation is on housing, whereas the Subramani is on the right to health. Those are our main cases that we have in this country following the state versus Makwenyane, the well-known. So if you can study that, you will see the the viewpoint of the law towards that. But just to finalize, we cannot say the rights of foreigners are limited if they don't get access to this housing, because remember, the purpose of RDP was just to, or one of the main issues is actually to fix the errors of the past. Apartheid has left many people in poor backgrounds, and as such, RDP was brought to fix that. And obviously, if someone is a foreigner, obviously they were not a part of affected by apartheid. Let's say someone is coming from Angola or wherever, they were not affected by apartheid compared to the citizens of the country. I thank you.
President, we know what is primary, so we won't waste time. No, I just want to touch on the two questions which were asked by my brothers then. They are very critical questions, of course, but you know, the challenge with being a young person, I was reflecting with the speaker on our way here that, you know, when you're a young person, you're a product of these fees must fall and all of those issues, when you're in my position, the system that you are challenging and that you are against, now you form part of it. Yeah? And now you understand certain things that previously you were against them. You say, but you know? So when you're outside of the system, it's very good to be critical, but yourselves as students of law, it's also imperative to read, to study the system, so that if you are critical of the system, you know exactly what it is that you are critical about. So when I gave the reflection, part of the questions you are raising, my brother, are exactly what I reflected on in the reflection. I said, when we vote, we give a political party a mandate based on a manifesto which was presented to us by them. We say, we like your manifesto, we think you're the right ones to represent us, because in council, in EKURHULENI, there can only be 224 of you, not the 4 million residents. So you take the mandate from yourself, but the existing electoral system is such that when we are there, not you. Now we have to make assessments on where do we compromise. That's why I said there's a challenge of the party interest versus the people's interest. Because the people, we may know, Guti, some of these things are a compromise on that, but because we're at that level, it now becomes a discussion and engagement at political party interest level. And I'm not saying it's correct. I'm saying that's the reality we're in as we reflect on the current status of these coalition agreements. I even said, when I say we, I'm not including myself, but I'm there, you see. So it is a point of discussion, especially students of law. You are going to be legal practitioners, you are going to be specialists, you are going to be politicians. You need to look now, the existing legal framework, the existing electoral system, does it speak to the interests of the people? Does it fully empower the voting constituency that their interests are going to be represented at that level? It's not for me to decide, because I'm in the system. And I'm a ward council, I'm directly elected. My name is on the ballot paper, so can't remove me with a vote of no confidence. And then just also something that we may not know, which may be of interest to students of law. You know, in councils, in legislatures, even in parliament, there are public galleries. You can come and witness what is happening with your mandate that you've given to these people to represent you. When I write on social media, I'm writing my view on what happened and how I feel and who betrayed us and who's lying, then I take a selfie there. But in council, that is the reality of the issues. So one thing, as you are reflecting on the decisions taken in Joburg Council, they're not telling you why certain parties voted against that thing. Because now you're going to be building toilets for people who don't have houses. What about the dignity of having your own home? Of that home being dilapidated, but now you've got a nice, fresh, clean toilet. The view was, fix the houses, which will come with a toilet inside the house, not to have an outside toilet, as we are progressing towards bringing dignity to the lives of our people. So when you see it on social media, you see another aspect. Because there's populism, there's party interest. We are going to 2024. Some people want to see themselves in national parliament, so they do that. You see. And on the second question about the legal framework and the issue of the contract law, when you read the Constitution of the Republic, Chapter 7, which speaks about local government, Section 151 to Section 164. Speaks about the mechanisms, the workings, the formations, establishment of government, and of local government or municipalities. I was dwelling on Section 153 because that is where we speak about the obligation of a municipality to its residents, the provision of water, the provision of electricity, and so forth. There are other supplementary legislations which, as law students, I'm expecting that you are going to engage us on that. If you speak about the Municipal Structures Act, if you speak about the Systems Act, if you speak about the Municipal Financial Management Act, which gives responsibilities and mechanisms of oversight. So when we say here at a panel, there's no accountability, do we look at the resources we have for that function of accountability? Because as councillors, one of our primary objectives when we elect executive is also to exercise oversight. There are mechanisms, and then we come back and we account. So when, as a legal student, where are you in that process of accountability? Do you understand the resources available to you in terms of making public representatives accountable? So that if they're insufficient, you must start and say to us, work with us, City of EKURHULENI, want to advance you, want to teach you something, want to assist you to change the existing legislation so that it speaks directly to the people which it most directly affects, which is the poor masses of our people on the ground. So as I close off, because I understand the mandate, Comrade President, I want to say on the issue of service delivery as well, more especially from a perspective of a ward council who's educated as well. When we say the zero service delivery, I don't want to expand. I think the speaker articulated it properly. Just something of interest. You know, in the city of EKURHULENI, we have the second best water quality in the country. City of EKURHULENI. In the previous political administration, 2016 to 2021, ESCOM came down heavily on the administration at that time because they exempted certain pockets of EKURHULENI from load shedding. What was the logic? The logic is EKURHULENI is the industrial hub of Gauteng. It's the manufacturing hub. Jobs are created in EKURHULENI. If EKURHULENI is going to implement load shedding the way ESCOM is saying it must be implemented, it means people are going to lose jobs. It means companies are going to lose revenue. It means the municipality itself, people are not going to pay, saying we're unemployed, you are mooring us with load shedding. So those are some of the challenges that you face, even in a political setup where you are an office bearer, an executive. The law sometimes does not work in your favor. And that's why we're saying government cannot be left to politicians alone. Also, yourselves as students who are going to be qualified something somewhere, come and govern with the politicians. Look at the existing framework. Does it work for us? So that you can bring your technical skills and expertise to assist some of these people to make the correct decisions. Because one side, they decide on load shedding. On the other side, we are saying we're going to be losing jobs, but we want money from those same people. How does it match? We need to be able to say, Speaker, when we transgress, when we don't comply with a certain law, we took advice from specialist legal advisors, we took advice from energy consultants, we took advice from economists. We've got a full panel of specialist advisors in the city of EKURHULENI to justify why we don't believe load shedding is going to be proper for us. As an example, then we can engage it at the court while we're still ensuring that our people get constant energy supply and allow that legal process to unfold. So I just wanted to touch on that to say, some of the things we're talking here, other people on the community on the ground, they don't know them. Nina, you are privileged because you've got progressive young people here in front who can give you some insight. But when we're done, Nati as a society, we have a collective responsibility to go back and inform and educate our masses so that they understand the processes And if we don't agree with the processes, yourself, as specialists in your field, must assist in reviewing and changing those systems so that they work better for us. Thank you.
I've truly also gained from these talks, and I know that we all have, but I do have dissenting views because I'm not a politician and I'm not in politics. That it's important to have critical thinking in the society as well. It's important to have, different views with regard to how we take our society forward. And I want to just also highlight the fact that if you see in the white community, they have one voice, even though they differ. We've had in the record of our government only the, Freedom Front and the DA as a second white party. That's a mixture. But as Black people, we must unite in our differences. We must see that these challenges, this critical thinking is important, but unite in them. And I feel like coalition government could work. They've worked. In history, in Africa, the examples that they've worked, we cannot just say you didn't vote right. We have to take our accountability for our people. We have to put them first. Ubone ko magaeng how they operate. There's no waste collection ko magaeng. You service delivery is poor, but you don't ever see these dumps that are happening in our cities. And with our participation as a bigger community, with our innovation, there is that leakage of sewage. It's our responsibility, it's our communities. In our communities, our businesses have gone down. We go for the cheaper rate. I go do my hair at, Bramfontein or Marabastad at those other people. We don't support ourselves. We don't see quality in the work that we do. We're always looking to the government or the next party to do it for us. But this generation has to change. You have to take charge of your communities. You have to take charge of your government. We are the government. And that is my parting words for today. And I thank you so much to our panel speakers. I've learned so much from this group of people.
Thank you so much to the panelists and the speaker. Another round of applause, please. Without any further waste of time, I would like to go on the second last item on our program, presentation of gifts. I'm gonna ask our guests, I'm gonna call by name to go there, and Ms. Ketani to come and assist me with presenting the gifts. Firstly, I would like Mr. Cllr Tshivhenga to stand there for a picture as well. Ms. Keynote. Councillor Ngabayethu Chabalala. And finally, Honorable Councillor Ms. Cllr Tshivhenga. Thank you. the last item on our program is closing remarks by founding chairperson of Tshwane UNUSA, current secretary of the Tshwane SRC, Mr. Prince Mputi.
Greetings, everyone, law students in the room, panelists. My role here is just simple, and I will just keep it short, like a miniskirt covering the essentials. On that note, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you all, the speakers, for the thought-provoking presentations. Program Director Ms. Tsimologo Mathabate for organizing and keeping things under control and allowing a fruitful engagement between students and the speakers. However, I would like to thank you all, for particularly law students in attendance, and to the law students in the room, but I implore you to participate in the 4 key projects offered by the Unisa Law Clinic, which are your street law, practical legal skills, moot court, and the student debate and Indaba. These programs are aimed at honing your legal skills that you graduate as a knowledgeable and well-equipped graduate with skills required in the legal fraternity. Moreover, I wish to further let you know that should you wish to join or know about the how and when and be abreast about the programs of the Law Clinic, join other law students by subscribing to the only legitimate university college structure of the College of Law, the Unisa Law Students Association. And that's where you get all the information that you required. The leadership, the executive of the Unisa Law Students Association is in attendance. You can approach them and get your membership. Moreover, above all, I wish you all the best in your studies. Be bold and take risks, and don't let failure stop you. It is a part of life and another way to learn. At times, it's frightening, but we should see it as a chance to explore and to test our limits. Lastly, I would like to thank you all for attendance, and I wish that you travel safe home and enjoy your weekend. Good luck and good health to you all. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mputi. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time, that time of the day that we have all been waiting for. It's lunchtime, and this is how it's going to be facilitated. The speakers, your lunch is served on the first floor, go the private room. And then for everyone, I don't know if we can go table by table so that we can manage traffic. Maybe starting from that table and then like that. Thank you so much, everyone, and the program is officially dissolved.
This one is